anything creative that you make, you have to, you make it for an audience, you want it to be seen.
So with just a few weeks to go before submissions close, it's time to introduce another judge in the Making Waves Film Festival. And tonight it's Yael Friedman, a film academic who entered the world of film via a career in politics in Israel.
Hello, Yael. You are a judge on Making Waves Film Festival here in Portsmouth. Tell me a little bit about yourself, about your title and your background.
So at the moment, I'm I'm a lecturer at the University of Portsmouth on film production and film studies, and been doing that for quite a few years. At the moment, I'm the academic lead for the Media and Screen Studies department, I suppose, of the Film, Media and Communication School. I am mainly a film academic. My expertise and my research interests are in the area of Middle East cinema, Israel, Palestine. That's where I come from. That's what I did my PhD in. And documentary filmmaking. So I came to this country about 20 years ago doing an MA in documentary filmmaking in Goldsmiths and stayed ever since.
I believe from when we spoke before, you said you had, there was very much a political beginning to your career in film. Film obviously takes many roles, it can tell many stories, and especially now in terms of politics and in terms of the way the world is right now, it's probably never been a better time to actually get your voice heard out there. Tell me a little bit about how that came about for you.
Well, I started my studies in politics and my career in politics. Really, I worked for the Israeli Parliament and did a BA in political science, and been doing that for a while, and was always interested in film. So I kind of, partly that influenced, I suppose, my interest in film. So yes, I am interested in the way in which films affect politics, but also they are a tool for many groups around the world to voice any sort of political concerns. Every film, in my view, reflects to some extent a political atmosphere, even the most Marvel ones, in one way or another. So you can do it from an analytical point of view, but I was always interested in the way in which film is used as a political tool of advocacy in many ways and in different groups.
So as a judge and with that background, what will you be looking for in the people who are putting films into the festival this year? What will you be looking for in particular?
Not necessarily a big political message, but most the storytelling, I suppose, is what interests me. It's and sometimes it's about a way of looking at a situation, at the world, as a society, at another person. And it could be in fiction, and it could be in documentary, and it could be in animation, that sort of particular view that comes through a film voice, I suppose, if a director or a writer.
There is, I believe there's a 10-minute limit on the films in this particular film festival. What's your advice to anybody? Because obviously you have students and you're teaching the film theory. In a 10-minute piece, what would be your advice to anybody attempting to, could you tell a full story in that time, or to tell me a little bit about making a short form film?
I think you can tell a whole story, but just in a very concise way. And yes, it's about think about what is suggestive and could be suggested from the environment, from the mise-en-scène, from the way people look, from gestures. Not everything has to be sort of driven by a long dialogue or changes. And I think my main recommendation for anybody attempting something like that is to watch a lot of short films. So there's a fabulous resource that I always recommend to my students, which is Short of the Week. It's a wonderful resource for just watching a lot of interesting short films that are not necessarily require big budgets or lots of techniques. On the contrary, they usually pick them for the storytelling. So yeah, I think watching some of these things would give some inspiration to people.
obviously you work with students. What do you think are the benefits to the students or to anybody making a film? What's the benefit of actually entering a festival? Why put yourself through that judging experience? Why would you do it?
Well, because I think anything creative that you make, you have to, you make it for an audience, you want it to be seen, otherwise there's no, and I suppose festivals are a great opportunity to either give you a kickstart and a platform of, and usually people who come to festivals to watch films are people who love sort of films and love something different. So that's anyway, quite a nice experience. It's the networking and finding, like-minded people. And with the judging, I think it is something about, a critique that's important. We get our students to go through that every time. It's and it's sort of a skill that you have to learn to take. And I think what's really nice about actually getting your film out there or getting your work out there is that quite often you'll get responses that you didn't expect. So you learn something about what people see in your films that you might have not intended at all.
And things, and I guess that another side to that is the benefits to an area or to a society. I mean, Portsmouth putting on this film festival, obviously it's going to attract other creatives, and it's going to literally put a spotlight on Portsmouth. What's your thoughts on benefits to an area?
Oh, I think it's hugely important. It's a great vehicle, festivals, to any art festivals, but certainly film festival, because they create the buzz, they create a sense of community, they provide all those opportunities for networking. I think it's a huge enabler, festivals like that, for everybody involved, including the city or the city space. And you see that with the history of film festival all over the world. They are city-based, and there's a bit of an identity that's created for the city through the festival, and vice versa. So
I mean, I guess with things like the internet and with things like Short of the Week and YouTube, there's never been a time when populism is, I won't say more important, but is so effective. I mean, my thoughts are that I'm not even entirely sure that you need broadcast or you need cinema releases to make things that change the world now. I mean, with the internet, you make something, and if it speaks to enough people, then you can do what we all did to get into the industry, and you can change the world. I mean, what would you say about encouraging people? Again, my experience is that a lot of people who have the desire to make films that have a good point to them have probably got a little bit of inbuilt, certainly English people anyway, a little bit of inbuilt, they don't want to put themselves forward on that front. And a lot of people who are great directors or whatever, they have that level of uncertainty, of sensitivity. I mean, what do you say to your students in terms of putting their neck on the line and putting their thoughts out to the world to see?
Well, I think to an extent it's an era when it's a bit less scary, because we are so, and especially that generation, and I don't think that inhibition is an English thing at all. I've seen that all over the world with very, very, very different people, and it's very, very natural. But I think what's because it's such a to an extent moving image saturated society that we live in, and people put actually themselves and their thoughts outside in a sort of a video format all the time. It's a bit easier, and I think also the there's a lot of niche audiences there. There's a lot of and if something that social media and the internet taught us, I suppose, is that you find your people, and the people that would be, chances are that there will be people that are interested in what you're interested in. So the sort of establishment gatekeepers, they're there for particular sort of things, but they are only part of the picture today. So by all means, I think it's worthwhile to put yourself out there.
So what would be your message to anybody watching this who is potentially a filmmaker thinking about, when they don't have a great deal of time, because the closing date, I believe, is the 30th of January. But what would be your message to anybody who's in two minds about a 10-minute film, especially one that's low budget? And if you if you work on it properly, you don't need a huge amount of props or lights or crew or anything. What would be your message to anybody who's in two minds about dipping their toe into the pond?
Well, I suppose I just do it. Just do it, put it in. It's not, I mean, the worst that can happen is you won't be accepted. And that's part of what's happening to any filmmaker with whatever film. And, you know, it is not only about whether your film is good or bad, it's about the viewers that are seeing it, the particular people that are looking at it. So, as I said, the opportunities are so much vaster these days and so diverse that, you know, you will find something, and, you know, just try.
That's smashing. Thanks very much, Yael. Well, I hope you enjoy the films this year, and we'll no doubt see you
as well. Okay,
thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.